Do you live in a world filled with corporate data? Are you plagued by siloed departments? Are your lackluster growth strategies demolishing your chances for success? Are you held captive by the evil menace, Lord Lack? Lack of time, lack of strategy, and lack of the most important and powerful tool in your superhero tool belt, knowledge. Never fear, Hub Heroes. Get ready to don your cape and mask, move into action, and become the Hub Hero your organization needs. Tune in each week to join the League of Extraordinary Inbound Heroes as we help you educate, empower, and execute. Hub Heroes, it's time to unite and activate your powers. Before we begin, we need to disclose that Devin is currently employed by HubSpot at the time of this episode's recording. This podcast is in no way affiliated with or produced by HubSpot, and the thoughts and opinions expressed by Devin during the show are that of his own and in no way represent those of his employer.
How you doing, Liz?
I'm good. Are we ready to rock a new episode of Hub Heroes?
Yes.
Even though we are unsupervised, George is on vacation on a boat.
We've been de-Georged this week.
That's great.
I know. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I know that he and I, week after week, will sometimes, like, we keep each other on each other's toes,
Yeah.
Like, that's our thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm unchecked.
I do like the lack of supervision. I do like the lack of supervision.
Yeah.
I like that part. That part's exciting. Yeah.
I know. Oh, yeah. I need an adult. I need another adult. Like, I need many adults.
We get unhinged Liz this week.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Liz Unchained, dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yep.
You know what else is nice, though, guys? We do have someone warming that seat this week. I'm sure our listeners have noticed a new voice on. We've got David Gable, head of sales at Kixie. That's you, buddy.
That is me. Hey, guys. How's it going?
It's going great. So Kixie, my understanding is that you guys offer automated calling and texting solutions for sales teams using CRMs like HubSpot, right?
It's almost like
That's kind of the big.
It's almost like you read those words. Like those words were just given to you by someone.
I
here.
know.
They're so
Someone smart gave them
accurate. Yes. Yeah. I could not have said it better myself, Liz. It's almost as if it were typed and emailed to you and read right back to me. It was so specific and actionable. I love it. It's great. That's exactly what we do.
You'd be so proud of me. No one actually sent it to me. I did that research.
Oh, did you really?
That's what I did.
Oh, she nailed it.
I'm an empowered, strong, independent woman.
You are, and unsupervised. And you did that all on your own. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
I know. I know. One day I'm going to want the votes. But until then, thanks, bud. I look forward to hearing about that in my 360 review.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know what that is, but I'll be sure to give one to
you. So clearly with someone like David on today, as our folks at home might have guessed, we are talking about SMS texting in the context of marketing. And that's a bit of a controversial topic depending on who you ask. So I want us to go ahead and just dive right into this conversation. David, before I get to you,
yep.
Max and Devin, when I say SMS text marketing, what immediately comes to mind for you? Because I will admit, as I was preparing for this, I kind of had some complex feelings about it. There are some brands that the way they use SMS texting, it makes me want to chuck my phone into a river. But then there are other cases where I started going through my phone and I'm like, oh, wow, but they're actually ones that I interact with very regularly that are purposeful, that are helpful, and that I actually use. Mm-hmm. So it made me wonder, my knee-jerk reaction, I don't like SMS texting. Maybe it's more circumstantial. But Max and Devin, I would love to hear from you guys about that. What are your initial thoughts when you hear about it?
I want to say one word. That's my initial thoughts. And then I want Devin to go into his thing because I think they'll tie together very well. Ready?
Yes.
Careful. That's what I'm going to say. Careful. Right? Great power comes great responsibility. Careful. Right? Devin, take it away.
Oh God.
I'm
going to apologize
Already in the chat. Wait.
Are you
Can we just
responding
point
to
that in the chat?
SMS marketing right now, Devin? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Have you gotten text message marketing?
Yeah.
He has. Look,
He's gotten like 5.
That's the danger right there. Look what can happen. You could derail a whole webinar just with improperly timed text message communication.
We also talk about how Chad in the chat pane was already ready for this. I'm ready for a Devin rant. So Devin, take it away, bud.
I could barely contain myself. Trying to be really, respectful of our guest and the work you do. But I hate SMS text messaging with a passion. Like it goes beyond chapping my hide. It really like with
grinds your gears.
Like from the core of my being. I hate it. I have never gotten an SMS marketing text that I was happy with. The only time text messaging from a company is okay to me is when it's transactional. Like when I'm calling AAA and they're letting me know someone's coming. Outside of that, the store letting me know that they've got this sale because I put my number in the kiosk for my receipt, I know. Oh my God. Or one time I applied for a loan and these people keep, oh, by the way, you got approved for the loan. Yeah, but I didn't get it. So leave me alone. And I keep I've marked them as spam and they still, because I did stop and it didn't work. And then I marked them as spam. And so now I get these, and they send them from new numbers. But my phone is smart enough to I know that's spam. And so every now and then I'll get a text message indicator. And then I look at the text message, it says, hey, this was spam. And I'm like, I already know who it was from because they're the only ones that are blowing me up. But I never since SMS messaging has become a thing, have I been happy to get a text from a company. And the only thing that frustrates me more about SMS text messages is the fact that they work. I hate the fact that people get results from SMS messaging because that just guarantees that I'm going to get more messages. And it's like, I wish you people weren't so okay with strangers texting you because then they wouldn't text me. I wish there was an SMS do not text list that I could just get on. Because it's like direct mail, except instead of your mailbox, they're in your bathroom. And it's so intrusive and just so annoying to me.
Yeah.
But
Devin, how do you really feel?
Devin,
let it out though.
SMS as a channel has reported positive results, and I hate it.
Yeah, they're in the bathroom and they got the remote switch to your bidet. Is what they're. But
that will get your attention.
I'm just saying it's invasive, right? Yeah. No, one thing that I want to add on, because I wanted to say careful, and then I knew Devin was going to do that, and then I want to add the rest of my thoughts onto that first, right? Is I think of SMS almost in the same, almost with a couple of key differences than I think about email, right? Yep. There's a right way to do it. There's a wrong way to do it, right? And I think everyone here, including you, Dave, is going to agree with that. Yep. There's a right and wrong way to do everything that you do with HubSpot or anything else, right? When I think of texting, I think the biggest kind of difference between that and email, because think about it, with email is like, I look at screen, I see message that has words, I maybe do something because of it. Yep. Like in that sense, they're the same. However, email is very passive. People can interact with their email when they want to. They can shut their notifications off. They can say, I'm only going to check my inbox later. And in that point, it's just how much are you messing with their life when they're doing that? Yeah. Right. But you check your text messages immediately. You stop what you're doing and look at your text message. Your Apple Watch taps you on the wrist and goes, hey, there's something really important. It trained you to do this, right?
It makes me so angry because I'll be like, is it a hot guy? No, it's 10% off of Geico.
Exactly.
Next best thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So when I think of SMS and when I think of it's interesting with for marketing, I think you got to think about how marketing supports experiences that people go through. Yeah. And I think with SMS, like an SMS should not be doing like the job of a blog post, right? Blog posts and content you create goes out there and it interacts with people that you don't have permission to talk to yet. Yeah. Right? Because they just freely find it on the internet. Right. However, if you get someone's cell phone number and you hit them up and they were not expecting you to text them, that is like instant violation of like my privacy, right? When I get political campaigns smashing me on text messages, I'm like, I can't write stop fast enough. And I hit the report button. It's like, no, don't do that to me. Right. Like if you're gonna buy my info, shoot me an email. Don't text me. Right. Because like that text message could be a text from my wife, a text from my kid, a text from someone who's like really important to me. And when you've invaded that sacred attention wave that I have, and you did it to try to sell me something, and I didn't ask you to do that, hate you so much, right? However, if I was expecting to hear from you, that's a different story. Right. So I think like it's the way in which you use it. I have two brands that I freaking love when they text me. Right. And they're trying to sell me something, but it's under a very specific circumstance in which they know I buy their shit all the time. Right. And they know that something that I like is buying stuff from them, but they have the data to prove that. They weren't doing this before they knew I liked to buy shit from them. They got my phone number a while ago. They didn't ramp up the text messaging until I spent a shitload of money with them. Right. It wasn't, oh, we got your phone the first time and you haven't bought anything from us, which is what usually people do.
Totally.
Right. Don't do that. But it's like, hey, thoughtful, like drops of new products, including like a nice, rich, like image. I love it. And I'll shout them out later and stuff. But that's kind of where I'm thinking. There's a time and place for it, just like there is for anything else.
Yeah, I totally.
So David, I want to turn to you here. Because what I would like to hear from you is, first of all, your reaction to the clearly complex myriad of feelings.
We all just
jumped on.
I heard Devin's complex myriad of feelings. I heard Devin. It was subtle, but I was able to tease it out. It's interesting because when you message SMS messaging, I have the same initial reaction. I'm a human who's evolved over millions of years to identify threats and generally ignore things that are going well. As such, when you ask about SMS messaging, my mind goes immediately to all those SMS that I do not want to receive, like immediately, right? And what I forget oftentimes, unless I really think about it, is how great it is to have SMS messaging instead of having to call people for all the things I've been texting them about, right? Like in my interpersonal day, I love texting because it's synchronous to my schedule, which is like the most important thing, right? I'm willing to forego lots of benefits of a call, like tonality, not mistaking what the person is saying and getting angry at them for no reason, and them questioning why they may ever moved in with you. It's a long story, but text messaging is a easy way to fall into traps like that. Calling, much better, right? However, I'm willing to sacrifice all of that because I'd much rather have it be in sync with my schedule. I can text you when it's convenient for me. You reply when it's convenient for you, and everything's gravy. But like Max said, we want to make sure we're texting at a time that is actually appropriate about a subject that I actually want to hear from you about, And so I'll give you just a quick counter example because I think it's better than me arguing in the abstract. But like if someone comes on the Kixie chat and starts chatting and they say, I love your chat bot, they don't ever say that, but I want to talk to a human, right? And then they don't get a response in a minute and then they bounce, right? That person would love to get a text message probably if we have from an agent here at Kixie, an actual human here at Kixie, right? They would love that. Now they haven't overtly said to me, and you're unlikely to really hear this very often, hey, please text me, you're probably not going to hear that. But man, they would love to talk to a human. And so that's so we trigger an auto text, right, from an agent here at Kixie to that person. Hey, sorry you call in the chat. Sorry we couldn't get a human over to you in less than a minute. I'd love to talk to you whenever you're free. What a great use of text messaging. So I think to Max's point, it is definitely contextual. And I think the mistake people make is thinking that it's a hammer, everything's a nail. I just need to send out more auto text. It's like the bad days of email spam when it was just like more emails, and it's just like if I send out enough tens of thousands of emails, people will buy my product. No one is buying your product direct off of SMS marketing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it can be a great way to bridge conversation. Yeah. And
that's super interesting you bring it up. I think because what we need to do for everyone listening here is like I think there's two different sort of like schools of thought when we're thinking about texting inside of HubSpot. There's sending texts meant to be the sort of like traditional, I hate saying the word blast, right? Where it's like, here's a list of people, we're going to promote this thing and send it out to everybody. And that would, I think, when people think of like marketing text message, a lot of people are thinking of that, right? Whereas kind of what you mentioned, you're not talking about sending out text as if it was like an email blast to like a list of people.
Correct.
You're saying, how can we give a more convenient way for you and your sales rep to kind of connect with each other when waiting for a Zoom call scheduled at a certain time is not always going to be convenient for everyone's schedule as well.
That's exactly
right.
right.
So like, so like in what's cool in HubSpot is like both of those things can happen, right? And you can use them in unison, but there can be elements of marketing text messaging or SMS or whatever that is. But then there's literal ways where inside the HubSpot interface, like you can literally empower your sales reps to have text conversations, not broadcasts, like conversations back and forth for someone who likes to just be able to text. So it's like you got a rep working on a deal or something. They've got a quick question about like the configuration of the doodad that you're selling them. You can say, oh, hey, did you need this in the red or in the blue?
Yeah.
Oh, the blue. Okay, great. I'll update the quote for it.
Nailed it.
Instead of being like, let's hop on a Zoom call to do like whatever this is. You know what I mean? So
you nailed it. 100%. And I think the keyword, you mentioned like unsolicited text message, the keyword being solicited, right? Like, and oftentimes that solicitation might not come in a really overt way, like, hey, please text me at my cell phone number, but it might come at like, hey, I'd love to talk to a human, or crap, I didn't identify which color I want the doodad in. I would love to get a text message say confirming red or blue. You know what I mean? Like that would be great.
Yeah. Yep.
So, David, here's what I want to ask you here for a moment. Because we're seemingly having a conversation about what SMS can be and what it should be for marketing and sales organizations using inbound. But then we also have to wrestle with the fact of what is in some cases. The reason why Devin, our complex man of nuanced emotion, and quite frankly, me too. I think we've all been on the receiving end of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
So where do organizations go wrong? How are they thinking about SMS incorrectly that leads to literally not customer delight? It's prospect and buyer repellent.
Yes.
How does that happen?
I think they get it wrong by thinking it's one of two things: either a panacea, meaning all I need to do is SMS enough people and they will buy my product, or that it's completely useless and I should abdicate that entire medium and focus only on calling and email, the two other ways I can annoy people and get them to scare them away from buying my product if not used correctly. So I think those if you find yourself gravitating towards a poll on the issue, I would say you're probably wrong. It's the same standard I use for politics sometimes. If you find yourself really gravitating really strongly, maybe like I would edge towards the middle a little bit, meaning I think SMS is actually the preferred method of communication for most of us, for most of our day. And because it's preferred, we're especially defensive about it. You know what I mean? Like anything valuable to us, Devin's especially, Max is especially, and me too, really defensive about my SMS because I've given up on my inbox long, long ago. That thing is it's just filled with slings and arrows from a million different marketers trying to get a hold of me. And so it's almost useless at this point. So like I'm okay abdicating email, but please don't do that to my SMS. But however, if it's communication that I want, then God, I'd love to have it over SMS. I mean, for me, if I had to handle all the communication I handle over text, over calls or long form emails, what a pain that would be. You know what I mean? So really, it's about, someone in the chat was mentioning C for consent. It really is, I think, looking for indicia of consent, or indicia of wanting that communication. Indicia meaning just some indicator from that person that this would be a good method of communication for me. And it's not going to usually be direct.
So much on this podcast.
I know we do, don't
new
we?
Words, new strategies.
Yeah, and it's fun. We look at these backgrounds and these hats people are wearing. I mean, this is a fun podcast and yet informative at the same time. It's amazing. We're doing both things. You know what I mean?
That's right.
All the things.
That's right.
So I think looking for indicia and then triggering calls or triggering text messages based off of that. HubSpot is like my favorite platform to build workflow automations in. My favorite. And the great thing is we can automate text either through Kickseat or through HubSpot itself that go direct to a person from someone on your team at a time that is convenient for them. So you send out an email, and the email has an embedded video in it from Vidyard or one of these other companies, and that's awesome. You see they watch the entire video, goes through all minute and a half on an email. Dude, someone spent 90 seconds watching my video. There's some interest there. That's not a bad time to text them and just say, hey, what'd you think of the video? And have that text come from me. And you can auto text that right up through your workflow. And just it's a real soft thing. What'd you think of the video? I'm not saying, hey, buy my product. I saw you watch the video. More text messages. It's not that. It's just like, hey, what do you think of it? That's great. That's a great way to open up some communication, and it's less intrusive than a direct call. You know what I mean? So I think to answer your question, like I think for companies, it's about finding indicia of consent or indicia of like an invitation. What action has this potential customer made that tells me, hey, there's a soft invitation here to text me, and it's probably going to be useful. You know,
if you bought their number, don't text them. Just don't. Like, that's a good like rule of thumb. If they gave it to you, it's one thing, right? But like, let's also remember too, when you say the indicia, and I always say indicator, which I'm imagining is the same thing here, right?
It is the same thing.
They're somehow saying, but I like that word so much better. I'm going to start saying
so fancy when I
used it too. Does it sound cool? It sounds fancy.
I love it. I love it. So where I was kind of going with this is like, it's one thing to collect the email. I mean, it's one thing to collect the phone number, but it's also another thing to understand how you're allowed to use it. Yeah. Right. So like that could be something as simple as saying a little checkbox that says it's okay to text me. Yeah. Right. Check it off. Have that on, because inside of HubSpot for the new SMS tools, right? There's like, you can only send to people that have like a certain property checked or consent checked or something like that, right? And so like you could power that property getting switched from that, right? Or it could just be, maybe your sales rep asking that first call, hey, is it okay for me to like text you? Yeah, totally. Cool. Check a box, boom, good to go.
100%.
Right? Things like that.
Especially
and it's easy to ask for that consent, right? And you really want to, because the last thing you want to do is get some information from someone and not know how you're allowed to use it, and then potentially create like a really bad interaction with them, right? So it's like, it's easier just to figure out if you have the consent or not to do it.
And
the other thing to keep it.
Yeah. Go for it. Oh, I was going to say, as a helpful little nugget too, when you're asking for that consent or assent, I think just saying like, mentioning the alternative. So, hey, would you like it to text back as we move through this process? Would you like to do it over text as opposed to me calling you and emailing you? When you phrase the alternatives, you're like, oh, well, I mean, I definitely don't want to jump on a phone call. I mean, dude, a phone call is like someone just these days, a phone call, it's like someone just showing up to your door and being like, hey, David, I'm here. And it's like, what the hell? I'm not ready for a phone call. I don't know how long the call is going to be. I don't know what, I've got things to do. Oh my God. It's a shocking thing these days to be called. So like as an alternative to that, I mean, sure, I'd rather you text me than that,
Well, I think the thing to keep in mind though, David, and at least this is where I'm coming from on it, is that over the past, 10, 15, 20 years, it's become easier for consumers to throttle and block ads, right? As we've become more inundated, whether we're talking about television, whether we're talking about, I remember when folders were introduced in Gmail and all of a sudden all of the emails that us marketers were sending started going to like promotions, started getting buried elsewhere. And so what's fascinating about this is that when it comes to SMS, it's one of the last few places where you can kind of catch somebody off guard. There is no real filtering. So what I find fascinating about it is like, I'll even catch myself eye rolling sometimes when I receive texts from people I opted into. And I think that's one thing marketers need to keep in mind is that I think they treat it sometimes with the same mindset as other channels. Mm-hmm. Like if I send an email, I have the expectation of, well, somebody will read that, when they're ready to read it.
Yep.
But when it comes to texting, that's not the same thing. I think there needs to be a little bit more reverence and kind of purposeful intention around when you're reaching out to people, because texting is jarring. I mean, now people are like, I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I am perpetually on do not disturb on my own phone. Like I just got so tired of every app and notification and text that I get. It's just like a constant barrage of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's frustrating because texting is one of the last places where we're supposed to be just getting good, happy messages, not junk mail. Mm-hmm. And I think it's starting to feel that way.
You're right. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you want to make sure these are good, happy messages you're sending out to these people. You want to make sure that like there is a real this text message is delivering something of value in some way to this person. Like I am helping. So I'll give you an example. I'm the head of sales over at Kixie. And so my guys get on sales calls all the time, and we're trying to negotiate these deals across weeks or months. And oftentimes we'll invite someone to a Slack channel or something like that. Why? Like not because we want to get a Slack notification all the time from them, but because, man, is it easier to coordinate when you have some quick asynchronous communication, meaning it's synced to my schedule and you can read it whenever it's at a time it's convenient for you, rather than just me trying to call everybody or doing one of those crazy email threads where someone replies in the middle of the thread and then it surfaces back up that half the thread but not the rest of the thread. Like, it's great. So texting is in a similar vein. If you're trying to move through a process and you're really trying to solve a problem for a customer, I know sales comes off as a negative thing so often, but like at the end of the day, sales done well is really helping them solve a problem that they're experiencing. And so if I'm getting help over text message, well, that's not so bad. I mean, if someone texts me saying, "Hey, David, I'm happy to help you move," I'm like, "Oh, well, that's a text message I would love to hear." So, and in the same way we help moving companies do exactly that, so I think
well, I mean, that's because they're getting value in exchange for the time. They're getting value in exchange for the time it takes for them to interact with the medium. And that's like what makes emails, that's what makes a good email versus a bad email, right? Because like whenever we interact with something on a screen, right, we're wasting our time in order to see what it is and see if it's value. And if it's not, we hate it. And if it is, we go, I'm fine with the time I just spent doing that, right? And so the same goes for text messages. But yeah.
David, you've alluded to a couple so far.
Yeah.
What are some great examples that you've seen with your clients in terms of how they, with purpose and intention, integrate SMS into their inbound marketing or sales programs? What does that look like?
So the example I gave earlier is a great one. Obviously, that's like really overt indicia, right? Someone comes into a chat, tries to engage, wants a human, can't find a human, leaves, you auto text them back from a human. Amazing. You've saved the day. You're Spider-Man with text messaging. It's, you know what I mean? Great. The great power and responsibility met in one, and you were able to web them and get them back to home safely, whatever it is. So like, that's great. That's an easy example. Usually they're not so strong. So like, I have so much sympathy now as someone who runs sales teams with salespeople. And so for those of you who are watching the webinar who are like, yeah, but I want to sell more. I get it from the consumer standpoint. Texting sucks, but it's the one medium that works right now. Like, how do I make use of it, right? And so for those people listening with that question, like, I'll get a great example. So it was COVID. We were locked down. I was working with a large pest control company that ends in Erminex, and they couldn't go door to door anymore, right? And there were all these bug problems that are localized to specific areas. So whole part of Ohio has cicadas everywhere or whatever, right? And so they can't go door to door and help people, but they would love to hit people up and let them know, hey, if this wave of cicadas or whatever like flows over your home and the pestilence spreads and you would love us to deal with it, we're happy to help, right? Well, what they were able to do was they were able to send out emails because, again, we want soft initial contact. We don't want to spam everybody in Ohio or Cincinnati saying, hey, cicada problem, text me here, and we're going to create a bunch of Devons everywhere that just hate this company and never want to hear from me. They'll be like, no, you know what? The cicadas aren't the pest. You're the pest for texting me, right? So like, we don't want that. So instead, what they did was they sent out the email campaign with an embedded video, just like, hey, if you see this kind of bug husk, that's an indicia of this kind of bug. We would love to go over and help you, to use that word again. And so when they watched that video, if someone watched it all the way through, not just watched part of it and skipped it, watched it all the way through, then it would trigger a text message saying, hey, sorry, what do you think of the video? You know what I mean? If they got a response over text message that wasn't like, do not text me ever again, great. Then it's like they were going to text back saying, I did see that. I think we have those damn things or whatever. Or like, I tried to get it for myself. I couldn't. Great. We'll send someone out over there to help. And that was that became like a nationwide campaign, but they made it very specific. Again, they weren't just sending out a random mass text to everyone in the United States saying, hey, do you have a pest problem? Like, that's the wrong way to do it. But specific to their area, like, hey, we noticed there are a bunch of silverfish in this area hitting these homes. You're in the area. Have you seen this? Here's a video explaining it. And then if they watch the video or reply to the email or workflow automation is triggering the text, that's great. Awesome.
That's brilliant, actually, because like what they're doing is like so one, very targeted, right? Because it's like, we know the cicadas are here, right? And I'm pretty sure the cicadas are related to the indicias too. Never mind, that was a dumb joke. Anyway.
Speaking of indicias,
I was gonna make a point, not just a dumb joke. So that's great, but like the fact that they were thoughtful enough to say, hey, we could get them to do this thing, watch this video, and if they skip out in the 2 seconds, they clearly don't give a shit, right? But if they watch the whole thing, then we have like a really cool indicator there of like, this might actually be not just relevant because of where they are, but relevant because of the fact they watched the whole video. Means they may have seen these things, have been going, oh shit, I'm going to actually hear what they have to say, right? Because if they didn't care, they'd be gone in a second.
100%.
Right? No one's going to watch a 5-minute bug video if they aren't seeing those bugs outside.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Unless you're like my 5-year-old, she loves bugs. But
so Devin, I have a question for you here, because you had understandable feelings, but as we've been unpacking this conversation around indicia and how these types of programs can be,
my number one is don't text me.
Where does your mind go
on your list? I don't care
whether that's you can see the case for it, or you just have more pleas for marketing and sales teams, just please to not screw that.
Don't. I have a burner Google Voice number specifically for things.
Devin specifically.
Even if he says yes, it's a no.
He doesn't mean it.
Devin doesn't actually even have a phone number. He got rid of it just for this. Yeah,
I've heard. I knew when I was working an agency, there was There was a house flipper that was using SMS to let people know about houses that were available in trying to even purchase some homes, and it worked for him. It was great. And so there are. Go ahead.
You're saying you don't have enough of a cicada problem yet for SMS to be okay. You're saying that the spread of locust, cicada, whatever, needs to be much higher for Devin to be really committed to this thing.
Until the cicadas are asking for squatters' rights, I feel like Devin's out on the cicada updates.
It's not enough, dude. He'd rather live in harmony with the cicadas. Yeah.
Basically, there is no cicada level, because I've driven through cicada country, and there is no because at that point, Devin, I don't need you to text me. I already call. If it's that, don't text me. Just don't text me.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw you lean up on that mic, so I was about to say, Max, do you have some questions for Devin?
Liz, can I interrogate Devin for a second? Okay. All right. I want to see where Devin is on some of these things. Okay. So, all right. So, I'm going to I'll ask you a couple questions. You tell me if you're okay with it or not. If you were in the sales process, let's say you had a conversation with a sales rep, it's a product you're seriously consider buying, but it's a complex sales cycle. Are you okay texting with the sales rep? No. Okay. All right. Interesting. That's just you. No. I know it.
But again,
you
don't
like
just me.
Yeah, you only getting texts from those that you're close with.
We aren't that close.
So what if it's even with convenient stuff? So let's say I think we mentioned AAA before, right? You're stuck on the side of the highway and the truck gets assigned to you and they're on their way out and you get a text. Is that cool? So convenience. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Transactional.
So you
absolutely.
Like the
my Walmart delivery is almost
texts
here.
That are
absolutely.
convenient texts that are hyper specific to something you just did. You're saying transactional. That makes a lot of sense, right? So if you just bought something, right, and it has to do with what you bought or requested or something like that, you're okay with text automations that are simple notifications, right? Just keeping you in the loop, which is very different than a conversation with the sales rep, which is also very different than hey, you don't know us, but we're trying to sell you something, right? Those are, I'm trying to form the categories you're okay with and the ones that you're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Text messages telling me that what I asked for is on the way, and that's it. Don't even ask me for feedback. Just tell me that okay, you got the delivery from Walmart. This person just started shopping. Okay, this person just substituted something. This person just is on their way to drop it off. This person just
interestingly enough, Chad in the chat, he brought up a very similar scenario in which how his company uses it. He says another thing we do is inspections en route SMS texts from the sales rep's number. We use a system that has a live tracking link and it sends a bio that is about the rep, their image, and the link. Then they can follow along with the rep and call the number back to get a hold of that specific user on the way to do the inspection, which I think is a really neat thing. And I like what you're talking about there, Max, about the categories of it. I think there's a very big difference between solicitation, unsolicited solicitation, right? And something that has to do with the completion of a transaction or a service or however it's being rendered. What would you say? So I want to take a moment here before we run out of time to talk a bit about technology. So obviously Kixi, which is this particular platform, it has the capability to integrate with CRMs like HubSpot. So David, can you talk to us a bit about the technology piece? What does that look like in terms of integrating those two types of that app and HubSpot together? And Max, I know you'll have thoughts about this as well. Don't you worry about that.
No.
Technology here. I've heard of technology. I've heard of it. In fact, Chad was mentioning in chat another thing too. Links in perfectly. He was talking about technology. He was saying, when I get a text message, what I would love is for there to be a human on the other side of it. And so you asked for a second, like what side of the technology? I think one of the things that we really provide value on as an add-on to HubSpot, we integrate directly with HubSpot, is you can trigger a text message not from a general marketing email text phone number, associated with the company, but a text message from an individual rep. That way, it can be part of a deal that's already moving forward. You're already in progression. You've already moved through certain stages, and maybe you're trying to buy a car or something like that. And all of a sudden, they got the car washed, and they don't, rather than using the stock images that you've been seeing on the initial website when you were perusing the car, they auto text you the brand new, newly washed car photos where it's got like the inside, you can see everything, and that's cool. Like that's a good use of text messaging. You're already far along in the process. You've been approved for an auto loan. You're shopping around. You already expressed interest in that particular car, and now you're getting an auto text with an MMS with individual photos of the car from the actual rep who you've been dealing with around the purchase. Like that's great. That's a very different experience, and probably one more in line with what Chad wants. But again, we're using stuff that sounds really scary. We're using text messaging. We're using it as part of a sales process, and we're using automated text messaging. If you only told me those three things about it, I'd be like, hell no. I would sound a lot like Devin. I'd be like, no, I don't want any of that. But when you put it in context like that, you're like, oh, actually, that's kind of cool. I would like to have some MMS of like real photos and not these cheesy stock photos that were on the website when I first looked at the car. Like, that's sick. So I think making sure that you're using you can use technology in a way that makes it feel more human and facilitate human-to-human communication, even if it's automated, which is kind of, it's kind of an odd mix. You wouldn't expect that. It's a result that you wouldn't expect from an automation.
Yeah. David, does Kixi more so focus on that facilitating texting conversations between humans at your company and your customers, or does it also have the element of where like brands are more so like you're getting a text from the brand versus like the
you could use us to send a text from a brand. Where we really shine is texts and calls, because we do calling too. That's event based. And the event based, I'm not meaning so much like July 4th. I mean like someone opened the email, watched the embedded video, and replied to the email and say, yeah, I'd love to jump on a call. And then you get an auto text saying, hey, what time works for you? Yeah. I'm free these hours, these days. Okay, that's very different. That's kind of cool. But even though it's automated, even though it's an automated reply based, but it's based off of the event of the person interacting. So I think for a lot of the calling and texting I see this all the time. So someone sets up a sequence, and sequences are so cool, right? You see them in HubSpot, you see them in other places like SalesOps and Salesforce, and like sequence like call on day 1, email on day 2, call on day 4, email on day 10, and that's great, right? Like for a sales rep, that's great. For a recipient, you're like, well, look, there's no particular reason you're calling me on Thursday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon on day 4, apart from it's convenient for your schedule as a sales rep. But me as a recipient, like I'm doing stuff, man. I don't want a random text or call at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Like, that doesn't fit my schedule. But again, what we're looking for an event. So you send out the email or maybe make the call on day 1. And then we have triggers where we've sent out little pieces of bait, the email, the embedded video, maybe they visit your website, maybe they engage with your chatbot, like all this data flowing into HubSpot. And what people typically do with all that data flowing in is they call them at day 4 on Thursday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon and then send them an auto text because it's in their sequence. It's like, why are you doing that? You have all this data coming in. You know when they're free. You know when they're reading your emails. You know when they're engaging with the chatbot. Like, it's a little creepy, but at least it's convenient to their schedule, and at least it's solicited in the sense that they're doing some action that lets you know they're actually interested in the product that you're trying to talk to them about. I think that's a much better way to use technology to facilitate human-to-human communication, like Chad wanted, as opposed to like scaring people off from ever wanting to talk to you ever again and just replying, no, stop texting me on their phone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then you guys also have, just like from a technology piece of it, I remember, I don't know if I'm getting the name right, but you have these like, I think call queues is the word inside of HubSpot, but you have this feature where it's like, if someone fills out a form, you can literally get them into like it basically auto calls them from, or I can't remember exactly how it works, but like it basically triggers one of your reps to call them and like puts them in a queue to be
exactly
called,
right. Someone fills out a form on your website, all of a sudden a sales rep on your team, boom, they get a pop-up form fill. Do you want to make a call to this person? They click accept. They're automatically calling them. They don't pick up. You can drop an automatic voicemail, and then maybe you send them a text and say, hey, I dropped you an automatic voicemail. I won't text you again unless you want me to, but let me know a good time to call you. Again, now I'm texting them to find a good time to communicate with them. That's great. Now, again, I'm texting them just in a way to get permission and to get some information from them. So again, I don't want to be a spammy salesperson. At the end of the day, I want to talk to you. And if you tell me no, I want to go away and remove you from my list and never bug you again. You know, that's the ultimate goal here, not to just annoy people with my brand. You know, so I think the incentives can be aligned between the person and the brand. It's just making sure we use the information available to us to be smart about it, you know?
Yeah. Do y'all ever recommend that people, and this is more like a strategy thing, like, and kind of going back to now I can't even say indicia thing, right? Would you encourage folks who, when they see someone unsubscribes from their email, is that a pretty good indicator that like you probably shouldn't text them to?
God, yes.
Is that something you guys have experimented with or looked at? Okay. Got it. So it's one of those things like, hey guys, safe to say, if they don't want your emails, probably don't send them a text either, right?
I think this is true for a lot of sales processes. A lot of the automation gets used incorrectly. We see automation come in and we're like, ooh, I could automate everything. It's like, whoa, okay. Before we start automating everything, let's think about what the triggers for these automations are. And the automation should work in both directions. They should both get people further along in the sales process and encourage us to auto call or auto text them many times. It should also do the opposite, which is they're giving me indicia that they do not want to be a part of this process anymore, that I extricate them, as another word, from all the other communication, the various channels I'm hitting them up in. Let's pull back on that. And that's true for not even, I mean, it's just a little bit of a tangent. That's true for marketing spend as well. I see a lot of times people unsubscribe from emails and stuff, and that you're still, your ad spend for LinkedIn sales ads, you know, your LinkedIn ads are still targeting that person. It's like, whoa, what are you doing? Pull back from everything. Stop bugging them about Kixie or whatever it is. Like, they're not interested. Like, save yourself that marketing spend and put it towards someone who might actually be interested. Like, let's unenroll people from things.
So as we wrap up this conversation, I'd love to hear from all of you. And Max, I actually want to start with you this time. I would love to hear from you all on what would you like to see brands challenge themselves to do in 2024 when it comes to SMS and their marketing and sales programs. Devin, I'm predicting that your answer may be don't, but you know, I'm going to leave room for you to prove me wrong, but we're going to start with Max. Do not.
Oh. Yeah, first, don't you dare text Devin is the one thing that I'm going to tell everybody to do. Don't, because you know what? You'll end up on a podcast that you weren't even invited to. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Just in that he'll probably start a segment at the beginning where he goes, "This is a list of the companies that texted me this week," and it'll be an ongoing segment.
Not bad. It's not a bad idea, actually. It's actually a clever idea.
You better do that, Devin. We should start doing that right away and putting him on blast. Yeah. Devin's SMS shit list. Yeah. So here's what I would recommend. And I'm going to say maybe I'm going to focus a little bit on companies that do rely on repeat business, right? Specifically e-commerce companies out there. There are two particular brands that I really love. One's called Melon. They make hats, and another one's called One Bone, which makes clothes for guys that are my size, right? These guys do a really, really great job at sending not SMS, but MMS, which is like SMS is just plain text. MMS is where you can get like emojis, files, pictures, like all these other things, right? What they've done is they've clearly kind of figured out that I like to buy stuff from them because, and that is very interesting because most of the time, a goal or a challenge of your customer is not to buy things from you, especially if they've never bought anything from you in the past. However, if you've seen somebody buy something from you multiple times, there's a good chance that a goal of theirs can sometimes be to buy more stuff from you because they've clearly done it multiple times. It's going to be way more likely that is somewhat, even if it's a small one, at least a bit of an iota of a goal or a challenge that someone has, right? And for those people, I'd say if there's any time that it's okay to send the, hey, here's a great deal on, 20% off of like whatever, it's to the people who buy from you regularly, right? So I think one, my thing there is take those messages that you're sending just to everybody because you're basically saying, I want everyone to buy from me, right? So I'm going to send everybody these coupons and these friggin', 20% off, like, there's a sale going on thing. Don't send them to anybody. Send them to the people that buy from you regularly and stop annoying the people that don't. Yeah. Because you're just doing negative stuff to the margins of folks that don't care about that, right? When you could just be focusing on the people that actually care, right? Because I'm assuming, the more people that report your text as spam or I don't know if that's even a thing, or like saying stop or like reporting you for like abuse or like whatever it may be, you want to avoid that as much as possible and really kind of isolate these sort of like super bottom of the funnel, like text messages to the folks who have actually indicated like buying from you is something I do regularly. Right. And just make sure it's used in the right spot. But I would also think too, that how can you think of like new products that you have as like new content? Right. So a really cool thing that these companies do that I enjoy getting texted from. I'll find Melon here and I'll put it up on the screen. So Melon. So these guys, I can barely see it on the screen here. I don't really know. Every single time they send me a text, they only send me, well, of course, it was the holiday, so they were a little bit crazier on like the coupon stuff, right? But they only text me when there's like a brand new like drop, like a brand new hat, like something that I haven't seen before. So it's like net new content to me. And they always deliver it with like a really beautiful, stunning image, which is not something that you're used to seeing in a text message, right? Especially any kind of marketing text message. It's usually always like, save 50% off, hit to a Texas back, stop to not get this. And no one likes that, right? So it's like, for those folks that really like to buy something for you, if you are going to send a text, what are the little things you can do to make that text a little bit more interesting, right? If it is one of those very bottom of the funnel, buy some stuff again from us texts, it's all the little stuff you can do in there to make it better. But the most important thing you can do is really make sure you're isolating a segment of your audience that buying stuff from you is actually an interest they have, right? And until you've seen someone do it multiple times, David, you can't say buying from you is something that they're genuinely interested in, right? Yeah, so I agree. Yeah, look for that stuff.
Yeah, I would say, I know we're short on time, but I'd leave you with like 3 compound words, like event-based, event-based, event-based. Like for if you're doing outbound and you're in sales, then you want to be triggering these text messages as a part of the sales process once it's already kind of been initiated, or because there's been, to use that word again, some major indicia that they would like to receive a text, or that it would be a convenient way to communicate given the interest they've expressed in whatever it is that you're trying to sell to them, whether that's email opens, email replies, watching embedded videos till completion, stuff like that. We're going to gather that, visiting your website, engaging with your chatbot. You start cobbling together those, some if-and statements in a HubSpot workflow, and boom, you're off to the races. You can do a great job at facilitating communication, not just from a primary marketing number, but from an individual rep on your side. So again, you have that human-to-human communication. The other thing I'll say, like, this is kind of an unsung hero, I think, oftentimes, support teams. Support is a rough business to be in, but that's a business where people want to talk to somebody. In fact, what people don't want is to deal with a lengthy IVR. So if you see someone trying to call into support, maybe you miss their call. Like, this could even be true for salespeople. I have this set up. You call me and I miss your call, my Kixie phone number, it auto texts you back just saying, hey, I'm stuck on another call right now or on a webinar with HubHeroes. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Here's my Calendly link to schedule time to talk to me. Otherwise, I'm gonna text you right back. And I see the text message that came out from me to them on my Kixie dialer, and like, it's great. It's great for everybody. It's convenient for me because I'm stuck on doing something else, but I want to reply, and it's great for them because they got a response from me, a human who they want to talk to because they were calling me. Support, it's a great use case for that. Someone comes into a call queue, maybe they get stuck in an IVR situation and then they leave. They would love a text from an actual human saying, hey, this is Sarah. I'd love to talk to you. I noticed you dropped out of the hold. I hate being on hold too. You know what I mean? Like, that's perfect, right? You save the day. So I think knowing when to use it based off of events is key. And luckily, if you're on HubSpot, you made an amazing decision, like, because you picked a CRM that has so many points of entry for data that you have lots of data at your disposal to look for these events, to trigger these texts and trigger these calls.
From the perspective of a consumer who has a love-hate relationship with the texts that I get from brands, is I would encourage brands, and this, I think this is true of any channel, but it's especially true of SMS. Do not treat it like every other channel. Do not make assumptions on what people want from you. Like, people will have a much greater threshold for marketing stuff from you in your email versus your text. So everything you should be doing should be done with intention. You should be double, triple opting in people to make sure that that is what they really want. It is a space in which you may feel like, oh, it's the same message that we're sending out over email and we're sending out over other channels, or we're just, to use the word that Max didn't like from earlier, blasting people into space with all of the coupons and all of the things. You're turning them off more. People are going to have a much more adverse reaction to your brand if you continue to do that. So just being really purposeful and intentional about, and I can't believe it's taken us this long to say it, the humans on the other end, the humans like Devin. Devin, do you have a message that you want to leave the world with as a human?
Yeah. So
I'm
not going to continue beating the dead horse. Text me. But,
that was beautiful.
We were so close. I thought we had him convinced, Max. For a second there, I thought we had him. I thought he was finally going to consent. He's not. He's sticking by his guns.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the thing. DoorDash. It's okay if DoorDash does it.
The thing is that if you're going to
literally anyone else
integrate SMS into your strategy, focus on delight. Focus on making people better off for the interaction. Don't think about you and what you want to get out of the interaction. Think about what the other person is going to get out of the interaction, and whether or not what you're doing, how you're engaging with this person is worth the SMS. Think of it almost as currency. Is what you're giving them worth the intrusion? And if the answer is no, then maybe you don't need to message them.
Just say, is this helpful, before you send it? And if you can't seriously, in your heart, without having a conversation with the person who really, really wants you to send it next to you, you can't say yes, just don't.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us this week on HubHeroes. How can people learn more about Kixie? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's good. I mean, you can visit our website, but hey, if you want to be direct, we actually have an email for anyone who's watched the podcast or met us at Inbound. It's literally HubSpot@Kixie. We're a diamond platinum partner. We're a platinum partner, I think, right now with HubSpot. And anyone who emails that, like, we will roll out the red carpet for you. We have sales engineers specifically dedicated to HubSpot reps, and anyone who emails HubSpot@Kixie.com, and they'll jump on calls with you. We'll give you free trials of Kixie. You can set it up, use it for a month, play around with it, see if there's features you like, features you don't like. More than that, we can just teach you how to use event-based automations in HubSpot. Like, You email us, we'll teach you how to use them, whether you use Kixie or not. That's just like a part of what we do. It's why we're considered a platinum partner, even though we don't actually charge for implementation services like a typical partner does, because it's part of our give back to the community kind of ethos. So email us there, HubSpot@Kixie.com. You heard about us on the webinar. We'd love to set you up with a trial, help you out, answer any questions you have. Devin, if you email us to HubSpot@Kixie, we will try and convince you to allow us to text you. We'll give it a shot.
You might have to do it via smoke signal at this point.
Yeah. Send them a carrier pigeon.
So wait, I was about to ask Devin, are you in or out on carrier pigeons?
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Abstract dance. Yeah.
Birds are awesome.
What about interpretive dance? Can we do that? Because there's some way we could
What about
a falcon? What about a falcon wearing a little cap, carrying a little scroll that says the cicadas are coming?
Ooh.
Well, can we just go full?
Okay, Hub Heroes, we've reached the end of another episode. Will Lord Lack continue to loom over the community, or will we be able to defeat him in the next episode of the Hub Heroes Podcast? Make sure you tune in and find out in the next episode. Make sure you head over to thehubheroes.com to get the latest episodes and become part of the League of Heroes. FYI, if you're part of the League of Heroes, you'll get the show notes right in your inbox, and they come with some hidden power-up potential as well. Make sure you share this podcast with a friend, leave a review if you like what you're listening to, and use the hashtag HubHeroes Podcast on any of the socials and let us know what strategy conversation you'd like to listen into next. Until next time, when we meet and combine our forces, remember to be a happy, helpful, humble human, and of course, always be looking for a way to be someone's hero.